The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradiorating.org. Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, Tuesday, June the 16th. Your readers today are Lori and
Lita.
Let's talk about the weather. Partly sunny and a steady breeze today with a passing shower during the afternoon. High of 73. Mostly cloudy tonight with a couple of showers later. Low of 58. A passing shower tomorrow, high of 71. Thursday, a couple of showers and heavy thunderstorms. I'm sorry, it seems like every time I read, it's rain, right? Friday, showers are going to be around. Saturday, thunderstorms possible, breezy. And Sunday, shifting clouds and sun. And finally on Monday, rain and a thunderstorm.
Okay.
We are not in a current drought, I believe. If you want to be warmer, I don't know about drier, but warmer, go to Needles, California, 105.
Ooh.
Or if you need to cool down, West Yellowstone, Montana, 27 degrees.
That's chilly.
Despite all the rain yesterday, the pollen was high.
Yes.
And today again, the pollen is high.
It's all over my car.
The sun, the sun sets tonight at 8:56 p.m. And just a little trivia: in which month are the sun's rays the strongest in the United States? What do you think, Lita?
I don't know. Tick, 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 tick. I'm going to say July.
Oh no, it's actually June.
Oh, darn it.
On to you.
Okay, on the front page, we have an article. Buffalo's demolition pause is over. The hard part is still to come. Revitalization. When former Mayor Byron Brown took office in 2007, one of his first initiatives was his 5-in-5 plan to demolish 5,000 buildings in 5 years. Petrucci served in leadership roles in 2 different stints under Brown and saw firsthand the demolition blitz. At the time, the highest estimates put the number of vacant buildings in the city at more than 23,000 in a city whose population had been declining for decades. Many residents and academics agreed then the city's housing stock was too bloated to reuse the thousands of vacant buildings. From 2001 to 2017, the city demolished more than 5,900 residential properties, according to figures compiled by the local think tank Partnership for the Public Good. While many residents welcomed the urgency with which the city worked to take down vacant buildings during that time, they were often used for illegal activity or are occupied by people seeking shelter who create dangerous conditions by starting indoor fires for warmth. Brown's critics focused on the scattershot nature of the demolitions and lack of a large plan. Henry Louis Taylor Jr., director of the University at Buffalo's Center for Urban Studies, has been studying land use in Buffalo, particularly in those neighborhoods most affected by vacancy and demolition, for many years. While the city was engaging in aggressive demolition policies under Brown, it had no plan for how to do the demolitions, or more importantly, Taylor argues, what would happen to the vacant land afterwards. They just tore things down and without any idea what they would be doing in that neighborhood or community after things were torn down, Taylor said. The number of demolitions has slowed significantly in recent years. Still, more than 17,000 vacant housing units remain in the city, according to estimates from Taylor. Petrucci said many of the available homes from the 2010s that were salvageable are either already restored or were knocked down. That, coupled with the modest growth in population over the last decade, has created an environment where mass demolitions no longer make sense, and putting available housing stock back to use is more important. I think we've reached a tipping point, he said. People living near vacant lots during the height of Brown's demolition blitz were often happy about those houses coming down because Brown presented them with only 2 options: live indefinitely next to an abandoned building or live indefinitely next to a vacant lot. But that was a false choice, as the Brown administration never offered a third achievable option: live next to a refurbished and occupied home. I will guarantee you back in that period, if someone had said, look, we'll either fix this house up or we'll tear it down and then leave the lot unkempt, which would you choose? Taylor said, I would say 10 out of 10 people said fix the house. Petrucci said that the previous demolition process involved the offices that hold the power to grant a demolition order, his office, the fire department, or housing court, granting the order, and the cities reaching out to contractors to perform the demolition with no further review. Now, a group of city employees with expertise in planning and safety meet regularly to review the demolition list and discuss whether a building can be saved and whether it makes strategic sense to prioritize stabilization efforts for that building. Some of them are proceeding with demolition, Petrucci said, but some of them were taking a hard look to see, can we stabilize it? Can we not? What does that path forward look like? Are there resources to do additional housing? Petrucci said the city will have to develop a list of architects and contractors to be available to react quickly to emergency situations, much the way it had developed a reliable group of demolition contractors for emergency demolition. The city also is developing the criteria and protocol for this system. Most of what officials have examined so far are high-profile or historically significant properties. After they get through that part of the demolition list, a new challenge will be making judgments on houses that are more typical, like the many 6-bedroom, 2-unit doubles that are common throughout Buffalo. Alan Malik, a senior fellow at the Center for Community Progress, who has written dozens of books on land use, has studied population decline and land use in Rust Belt cities for decades. He said the shift in policy is one that makes perfect sense to him. This concept of stabilization first is something that really should have been done earlier, he said. On Deschler Street, where Kaiser stopped to speak with a Buffalo News reporter on the way to work on a nearby house, candy wrappers, broken liquor bottles, and old socks litter the many lots where houses once stood. The single-block street has more than 20 empty lots, tall grass waving in the winds as passerby. 2 houses sit empty, one with significant fire damage. On nearby Wilson Street, vegetables now grow at a community farm on a block where no houses remain. Taylor said that so far, it seems as though Ryan is willing to take community input on issues and is deploying multiple strategies for housing and land use together that, if done well, could work to make real progress in an arena that has seen little change over recent decades. But he cautioned it will take time to see if those efforts bear fruit. He's trying, it seems to me, to couple together a broader strategy so that we just don't fix the housing and nothing else, Taylor said. Following through and transparency on the stabilization process will be crucial to the program's success. If you tell somebody who lives in a neighborhood, we're going to board and secure and stabilize this house because we're going to rehab it and sell it to a home buyer, they'll say great. If it's still sitting empty 2-3 years from now, then they may start to change their minds. For now, Geisler said he remains skeptical that the city will be able to make any progress on the vacancy issue, but he's willing to give the Ryan administration a chance. He hopes the city focuses its efforts on nonprofits and programs that make people homeowners instead of renters, as people who own their homes are more likely to take care of them. If you own something, you'll take care of it.
Absolutely. Got great news.
Okay, let's hear it.
Shoppers rejoice. Over news, IKEA is coming to the Galleria.
Yeah, baby.
IKEA is coming to the Walden Galleria. The Swedish retailer, known for its stylish and affordable home furnishings, plans to open its second store in upstate New York in the Cheektowaga Mall early next year. The store will be located in the former Sears and Sears Auto Space, which is located at the north end of the mall, giving the Galleria a new anchor tenant that has a broad reach, with shoppers often willing to travel long distances to shop there. It is also a coup for the Galleria, which, like all shopping malls, has been struggling to attract shoppers in the face of intense competition from online retailers. This addition is game-changing for the shopping center and further solidifies Walden Galleria's place as a leading destination for shopping, dining, and entertainment in Western New York, said Stephen J. Congle, the chief executive officer of the company that owns the Galleria. That company is Pyramid Management Group. Until now, the closest IKEA store to Western New York in the United States is in the Destiny USA Mall in Syracuse, which also is owned by Pyramid. IKEA also has its product pickup locations at 2525 Walden Avenue in Cheektowaga, as well in St. Catharines, Ontario, along with a full-service location in Burlington, Ontario. Bringing one of the world's most recognized and beloved brands to Western New York is another huge moment in our company's history, Conjal said in a statement. The retailer has been gradually expanding its network of stores, with plans to open 10 locations just this year, even as it has faced 2 straight years of declining sales, as consumer budgets have been squeezed by rising prices and sagging confidence, and the retailer faces higher costs due to rising tariffs. The Galleria store will cover about 67,000 square feet, roughly the same size as its store in Syracuse. It will be on the lower level of the former Sears space, which originally covered 2 levels. Primark, another popular brand that was considered a big win when it opened in 2023, now occupies the upper level. The store will include what Galleria officials describe as the full IKEA experience, including a showroom and marketplace, as well as its popular Swedish bistro with its signature Swedish meatballs. Ooh, yum. By comparison, the full-service IKEA store in Burlington spans about 215,000 square feet.
Oh, my goodness.
That location includes a 300-seat restaurant, a supervised children's play area, and an expansive warehouse. As its sales have softened, IKEA has shifted toward smaller stores, such as the one planned for the Galleria, over the massive 300,000 square foot locations, the size of 7 football fields it once favored. Those sprawling stores typically carry upwards of 10,000 products, while the smaller stores, such as the one in Syracuse and the soon-to-be Cheektowaga, carry around 3,000 products. IKEA has been a highly sought-after property among both landlords and consumers. About 18 years ago, an anonymous consumer started a petition to bring IKEA to Western New York. Western New Yorkers are deprived of modern, well-designed, and affordable IKEA furniture and other IKEA products, the petition reads. We want to be hip and cool. We want to live in style with little cost. We want to modernize Western New York homes, regardless of our sluggish economy.
Darn straight.
And all that time, the petition gathered only about 500 signatures. But IKEA fans found the petition and contributed to the conversation consistently throughout the years. In 2010, when an IKEA store was pitched for space at Canalside, a company spokesman said the retailer was looking only at markets of 2 million people or more. But that was before IKEA began rolling out its smaller format locations. IKEA first started experimenting with the smaller formats globally around 2019 when it opened its initial city center planning studio in New York City. This concept evolved through smaller plan and order points before debuting the roughly 35,000 square foot stores in 2024 to bring the abbreviated shopping experience closer to urban centers. Shoppers were gleeful upon hearing Walden Galleria's announcement. I've been waiting years, Sally Wanamaker Krollmeyer wrote on Facebook. Facebook user Nicole Majewski is ready to hit the ground running. Finally, she wrote, reacting to the news, so sick of having to cross the border to get IKEA. But some consumers were disappointed that the Galleria store won't be a full-service one. Aren't IKEA stores usually the size of the Galleria Mall? Joseph Strianese asked on Facebook. Noting the smaller format, Reddit user Wagon Circle Mike also weighed in. Glad it's moving in, but it might feel a little lacking. Still, beggars cannot be choosers, and a full-service IKEA may never be in the cards for Western New York. IKEA is actively evolving its physical footprint to adapt to changing shopping habits. While the company maintains its network of stores, it closed its full-size Memphis, Tennessee location early this year, along with a handful of other full-size locations over the past few years. Instead of expanding traditional superstores, IKEA is prioritizing smaller format plan and order point locations, and it's focusing on strengthening digital and delivery services.
I love it. And you are listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier radio reading service. The time is 14 minutes past the hour. And the potential jurors are beginning to answer questions from questionnaires for the Tops massacre trial. The first group of potential jurors in the Peyton Gendron death penalty case listened to instructions from U.S. District Judge Lawrence Villardo on Monday, and afterward they were ushered to a jury assembly room to fill out a questionnaire about their backgrounds, experiences, views, and feelings on a variety of topics. The pep talk came first. Velardo offered words of gratitude and encouragement that potential jurors in any trial routinely hear from a judge about civic responsibility and how the system of justice relies on them. Then came the part about the life or death consequences in the hands of those who will ultimately be chosen as jurors in this particular case. Words never before heard in the Robert H. Jackson U.S. Courthouse in Buffalo. Ultimately, a dozen jurors, if convinced of Gendron's guilt, will have to make a unique individual moral judgment about whether to impose a sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of release or the death penalty, Velardo told the group. Jurors in this case, they alone, will decide whether a mass killer will live or die. I cannot change the jury's decision, Velardo said. Such is the judge's script that more than 1,000 potential jurors will hear over the next 2 weeks as the process of jury selection begins in the case of the U.S. versus Peyton Gendron. The trial is expected to begin in October for the gunman who had admitted in state court to killing 10 black people in his racist attack at the Jefferson Avenue Tops Market on the 14th of May back in 2022. Gendron wounded one other black person and 2 whites in the attack. Gendron was in the courtroom Monday not wearing prison garb, but instead a blue golf shirt and gray trousers. It marked his first courtroom appearance in his federal case since April 2025 and just his 5th appearance among the 36 court proceedings since he first appeared in federal court 4 years ago. Prosecutors and defense lawyers will spend several months weighing whom to favor or reject as jurors from a pool of nearly 1,200 residents of Western New York who will fill out a lengthy questionnaire over the next 2 weeks at the downtown courthouse. Twice a day for 9 days during the next 2 weeks, groups of some 65 potential jurors at a time will fill out the questionnaires. The questionnaire takes about 2 hours to complete. Before filling out the questionnaire, the potential jurors will hear from the judge in person. I'll take the bench and I will talk to them the same way I talk to any other panel of jurors, Velardo said. The beginning is kind of a pep talk to them about why they should want to be here. Velardo, with a decade of experience presiding at trials on the federal bench, believes his talk will keep more potential jurors open-minded about serving. While potential jurors may be nervous or inconvenienced by jury duty, he told them Monday that being a juror is an important, tremendous, and solemn duty. I hope you are glad to be here, Velardo told them. This is your chance to serve your community and your country. The gravity of a capital case and the expected length of the trial, from October 2026 to January 27, figures to test the willingness of people to serve on jury. Velardo's instructions did not divulge all of the details of the mass killing, but he said he provided enough information to put the potential jurors in a position to make honest, accurate, and informed assessments when filling out the questionnaire. It is very important that you answer these questions as completely and as accurately as you can. There are no right or wrong answers to these questions, but there are incomplete answers, the judge told them as he asked for candid and complete answers. The judge covered the charges against Gendron, including 10 counts of firearm murder during a hate crime, the capital counts among the other charges. The judge also explained why there is a federal case, even though Gendron had already pled guilty to charges on the 28th of November back in 22 in state court and was sentenced on the 15th of February of 23 for those convictions to life in prison without possibility of parole. New York State does not have the death penalty, but federal law permits the government to prosecute and seek the death penalty for those charged with committing murder with a firearm during a federal hate crime. A federal grand jury returned a 27-count indictment against Gendron in July of 22. The Justice Department announced in January of 24 that it will seek the death penalty. Velardo reviewed the indictment, which describes what happened on the 14th of May back in 22. Gendron drove 3 hours from his Broome County home to the Tops Market, and he got out of his car wearing a tactical-style helmet, camouflage clothing, and body armor. He carried a loaded Bushmaster XM15 .223 caliber rifle and multiple loaded magazines, and he used a GoPro video camera to live stream the attack over the internet. 18 years old at the time of the attack, Gendron fatally shot 3 people in front of the store: Roberta Drury, Pearl Young, and Hayward Patterson, and wounded Zaire Goodman. After entering the store, Gendron kept shooting and killed 7 more people: Ruth Whitfield, Celestine Chansey, Aaron W. Salter Jr., Andre McNeil, Marcus Morrison, Catherine Massey, and Geraldine Talley, and wounded Christopher Braden and Jennifer Warrington, the only white people shot during the attack. The evidence may include graphic video from Gendron's camera. The evidence may also include Gendron's writing and postings on his Discord server, which contained hateful and racist ideology and a detailed plan to shoot and kill black people. A death penalty trial begins with the guilt phase, with the jury asked to decide whether the prosecution team has proved beyond a reasonable doubt that Gendron is guilty of the crimes charged, including the capital offense. If and only if the juror unanimously find Gendron guilty of any of the capital murder counts, the trial would enter into a penalty phase. In a penalty phase, during which prosecutors offer aggravating factors and the defense offers mitigating circumstances, each juror must ultimately make a judgment about whether to sentence Gendron to life imprisonment without the possibility of release or to death. These are the only 2 sentences possible. If every juror is persuaded beyond a reasonable doubt that the death penalty should be imposed, Velardo would be required to sentence him to death. He could not change the jury's decision. But if 1 or more jurors find that a life prison term is the appropriate sentence, the judge would be required to impose a sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of release. The law does not require jurors to impose a death sentence, even if they find no mitigating circumstances in Gendron's background and personal life. After prosecutors and defense attorneys review the questionnaire responses, a select number of potential jurors will be summoned to the courthouse for individual in-person questioning by the judge, beginning on the 17th of August. Not everyone who fills out a questionnaire will be called to the next step in the jury selection process. Many of those who fill out the questionnaire could give reasons seeking to be excused, such as worries about lost income, ruined family vacations, or missing school attendance over a long trial. Some people have been excused before even filling out the long questionnaire, such as those who said they will be attending college this fall, or those who got medical notes about their physical health. Velardo has excused 1 person who cited anxiety issues. I've dealt with jurors who have suffered anxiety, and it's awful to see them when they're in the courtroom, Velardo said during a recent hearing. It really troubles them, and I'm not going to make someone come in under circumstances like that. I just don't want to be responsible for somebody's health taking a turn for the worse because they came in for the jury service at a time when they probably going to excused anyway. Another person who claimed to be 100% disabled indicated willingness to serve, but would need a ride to and from the courthouse each day. Why are we going to make this person come in if the person can't drive and can't get in? Velardo said as he excused that person from jury service.
Wow. In my view, Larry Fertel of Orchard Park talks about space travel. Mars will be as good as it gets. With the recent success of the Artemis II mission, the first crewed flight beyond low Earth orbit since Apollo 17 back in 1972, the question on everyone's mind is, what's next? Humans back on the moon? A crewed mission to Mars? NASA is targeting 2028 for its first lunar landing, and Mars advocates are already dreaming further ahead. But what about a trip to the stars? Many dreamers and idealists believe that in time, interstellar travel could be possible. Let me be clear, it will never happen. To understand the problem, consider Voyager 1. Launched in 1977 to study the outer planets, it has been traveling for nearly 50 years and has now reached interstellar space. It moves at roughly 38,000 miles per hour,
Wow.
an almost incomprehensible speed, and yet, by interstellar measures, it is barely crawling. At its current velocity, Voyager 1 covers about 1 light year every
Oh my gosh.
18,000 years. The closest star to our sun, Proxima Centauri, is 4.2 light years away. At Voyager speed, it would take roughly 75,000 years to get
Jeez.
there, assuming it was even headed in that direction. Our current technology is incompatible with human interstellar travel. To reach a nearby star within a human lifetime, a spacecraft would need to accelerate to something close to the speed of light. A practical scenario: accelerate at a comfortable 1g, normal Earth gravity, for the first half of the journey, then decelerate at 1g for the second half. At 95% of the speed of light, the trip to Proxima Centauri would take about 4 years from the traveler's perspective. 2 years of acceleration, 2 of deceleration. Due to relativistic time dilation, thank you, Einstein, roughly 6 years would actually pass on Earth in that time. A round trip, about 8 years for the crew, 12 on Earth. Scientifically elegant, humanly feasible, in theory. But here's where the dream collapses entirely: the energy required. For a modest spacecraft, say 10 tons like the Artemis craft, accelerating to 95% of light speed for a one-way trip demands an amount of energy roughly equal to 7 times the entire world's annual energy consumption. Rocket fuel is laughably inadequate. Nuclear fission or fusion still falls orders of magnitude short. Even an antimatter drive, the most energetically efficient propulsion concept physicists have ever imagined, would require tens of tons of antimatter, a substance we produce at a cost of trillions of dollars per gram.
Wow.
There are speculative ideas, of course. A warp drive that bends space-time, a favorite of science fiction, remains firmly in the category of theoretical curiosity. Even in our optimistic scenario, consider what you're asking of passengers. 8 years in a small capsule with zero possibility of rescue, repair support from Earth taking years to arrive, and medical emergencies managed entirely on board. The logistics alone are staggering, and we haven't solved one of them. For now, and the foreseeable future, we are bound to our solar neighborhood. The moon beckons. Mars is a plausible long-term goal, and the stars will remain what they have always been. Lights in the sky that inspire us to imagine and remind us how small we actually are.
I love that. That is really cool. Sad, but cool.
Realistic.
Yeah, right? Okay, so the editorial from the newspaper is about insurance crisis. In the session that just ended, the New York... Let me start by giving you a time check here. The time is 27 minutes past the hour. State legislatures have failed to act on affordable health care for residents. In the session that just ended, the New York State Legislature fell short in dealing with one critical issue: the 450,000 state residents who could be without health insurance within weeks. Much of the pain, if not all, could have been avoided had the New York Health Care Act passed both houses and been signed into law. Instead, it had languished since 1992, failing to gain traction despite overwhelming public support. Meanwhile, a total of 759 bills passed both houses this year, according to an analyst by New York Public Interest Research Group, or NYPIRG. The number represents the lowest tally since the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 and lower than the average of 891 bills advanced during each year of Governor Kathy Hochul's tenure. The nonpartisan nonprofit research and public education organization noted that the legislature could have stayed beyond the scheduled end of the session, but that would have cut into campaign time. With many legislators facing primaries at the end of the month, few wanted to hang around and miss time on the campaign trail. Where does that leave New Yorkers? Many of them will lose their affordable health insurance as early as next month. As David Medina, former editorial and opinion writer for the Hartford Courant, wrote in a May 25th Another Voice, the New York Health Act would transition New York to a universal healthcare system that automatically guarantees coverage to all New Yorkers all the time. It would directly counteract the effects of federal legislation that, beginning later this year, will drop an estimated 450,000 New Yorkers from the coverage they now receive under the Essential Plan. Half of the Essential Plan is funded with federal dollars, money that was cut from the federal budget last year under HRI. The State Department of Health released a scathing statement in September in response. The New York Health Act has staunch supporters and staunch critics. While progressives favor the legislation, Republicans are loath to eliminate private insurers, just as Democrats do not want to upset public sector union leaders. But with this kind of damage coming from Washington, something has to be done to help those affected by federal actions. In a recent meeting with the Buffalo News editorial board, State Senator Jeremy Zellner spoke of the $750 million in investments for hospitals, nursing homes, and clinics, but admitted the central problem of health insurance has not been addressed. When facing what they are facing from the federal government, state lawmakers have to push back every single day in many areas. Medicaid is under attack, and the president has cut $1.5 trillion in health care across the country. Safety nets that have long served both low-income and middle-income families are being undermined everywhere. Having said that, this and other legislation failed to get accomplished in part because the budget was so late this year, with few days on the clock for discussing and passing bills. Legislators must take action. As it is, people who lose their health care will simply head to emergency rooms, and it will cost the state even more to care for them. Zellner, who signed on to the New York Health Act, believes everyone should have health care and that it should not be a privilege but a right for everyone. His primary opponent, Assemblyman John Rivera, is another supporter of the legislation. The New York Health Act could be the answer for the future, but in the present, affordable health insurance remains beyond the reach of those who desperately need the help now. Damaging reverberations from this lack will cause harm throughout New York's healthcare ecosphere.
And in another voice, raises for school executives aren't justified, and this is written by Stephan Wright, who is the Ferry District representative for the Buffalo Board of Education. As a member of the Buffalo Board of Education, one of my responsibilities is to be a good steward of taxpayer dollars while keeping students at the center of every decision we make. Since I was sworn into office in January, our district has faced significant challenges. We have dealt with concerns surrounding multiple potential data breaches. Currently, 58% of our schools are failing academically. At the same time, we recently adopted a budget that includes reductions to academic and social emotional supports, staffing cuts, and discussions regarding the closure of 4 to 6 schools due to declining enrollment and financial pressures. With the district struggling academically and financially, I do not believe increasing executive compensation sends the right message to students, families, staff, or taxpayers. Supporters of these raises have pointed out that exempt employees have not received a cost of living increase in approximately 2 years. I understand that concern. However, the district is in a worse position today than it was when those employees last received a raise. We are facing a budget deficit of roughly $60 million. Many members of the superintendent's cabinet earn salaries ranging from approximately $100,000 to $185,000 annually. These are significantly higher than what many families in our community earn. The median household income in the city of Buffalo is approximately $49,405 per year. I do not believe we should be talking about increasing executive salaries while reducing programs, discussing school closures, and asking students and families to do more with less. That is why I cannot support raises for the superintendent's cabinet or for other executive leadership positions at this time. Will a 3% raise increase reading and math proficiency? Will it improve attendance, graduation rates, or school climate? I have not seen evidence that it would. If we can find funding for executive raises, we should first ensure we have funding for the programs, services, and supports that directly impact students. Student outcomes must remain our top priority. Raises should follow results. And right now, our focus should be on delivering better outcomes for the students and families that we serve.
And the editorial cartoon is a picture of Donald Trump standing, I should say, looming over a cake in red, white, and blue, and stuck in the middle rather than a candle is the torch of that Miss Liberty holds, and he's blowing it out. And also noted on his lapel is an upside down American flag, and we all know what that means. Okay, so moving over to Leonard Green, whose opinion on snub shows nation's 250th is not for everyone. Why should black people make a big fuss about the nation's 250th anniversary when places like New York's Nassau County won't even recognize our history? In 2020, Juneteenth became a state holiday, and a year later, it became a federal one. Yet in Nassau County, the 19th of June has not been officially recognized, meaning it is not a paid holiday that county employees can use to celebrate a day of deep significance for black people across the country. We worked for it. Our ancestors worked for it. And this is 2026, said Tina Hodge Bowles, one of NAACP's Hempstead branch. It shouldn't be a question. Hodge Bowles was one of hundreds of union members, community leaders, and advocates who packed the plaza outside Nassau County's executive and legislative building in Mineola earlier this month to push county lawmakers to make Juneteenth a paid holiday for county workers. Organizers argued that Nassau, one of the few New York counties that does not recognize the holiday, is out of step with neighboring districts. But it is more than that. It is an insult and an outrage. For Nassau County to stand alone in refusing to recognize Juneteenth as an official public holiday is a slap in the face to the descendants of the enslaved, to the workers who keep that county running, and to every American who believes the truth of our history deserves our reverence and respect, the Reverend Al Sharpton, president of the National Action Network, said in a statement. When June 19th became a New York State holiday in 2020 and a federal holiday in 2021, this nation was finally admitting that freedom did not arrive for everyone on the same day. You cannot celebrate liberty on the 4th of July and then tell black workers that Juneteenth is just another workday. Juneteenth marks the day, June 19, 1865, when federal troops arrived in Galveston, Texas, to take control of the state and ensure that all enslaved people were freed. An official handwritten record of the handwritten original Juneteenth emancipation announcement is preserved at the National Archives building in D.C. That makes Juneteenth, in the hearts and minds of many African Americans, the true Independence Day, not the 4th of July farce that black people have been sold about a nation built on the back of slaves, born when men, women, and children had already been in bondage, families torn apart, punished for reading or writing for 157 years. What, to the American slave, is your 4th of July? Abolitionist Frederick Douglass himself, an escaped slave, asked a New York crowd in 1852. I answer, a day that reveals to him, more than all other days in the year, the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. Given that history and given Douglass's perspective, how dare anyone, including Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman, try to deny county workers, especially black county workers, a state and federally recognized Independence Day? Blakeman, a Republican who is running for governor, said New York can't afford another holiday and suggested union leaders who want the Juneteenth ought to trade in one for the other holidays already on the books. If you're really forced to trade a day, give them back the 4th of July. Even this year, it's not really all it's cracked up to be.
And according to Beth Cowett, who is a Bloomberg opinion, corporate America is no meritocracy. Just ask the women in it. In 2008, there were 12 women running Fortune 500 companies. Even though that equaled a measly 2.4%, it was still progress. A decade earlier, that was only 0.4%, or just 2 women, Jill Berard at Mattel and Marion Sandler at Golden West Financial Group. At that time, I had just started at Fortune magazine, where one of my first assignments was working on its most powerful women in business list that tracked the comings and goings of the handful of women who had managed to claw their way to the C-suite. Since then, I've used the count of female CEOs as a telling, albeit imperfect, measure of the advancement of women in corporate America. This year's number is alarming. Women run 55 Fortune 500 companies, or 11%. Objectively, this is an improvement, but if the growth continues at the same pace, it would take about 100 years for women to reach parity with men. What concerns me even more is that the number, while tied with last year's record, did not move an inch. If corporate America were a meritocracy that everybody claims to want, women, who make up about half of the labor force and earn most college degrees, would not remain so dramatically and stubbornly underrepresented in its most important role. You could argue the stagnation is just a blip and not a broader sign that the hard-fought gains for women in business are stalling. That doesn't appear to be what's happening. When you look at other gauges of progress, it becomes clear that in many cases we're seeing a full-on backslide. For the second year in a row, the gender pay gap has widened, the first consecutive increase in the gap since the 1960s. In the boardroom last year, white men made up the majority of new directors at S&P 500 companies for the first time since 2017. Women took on about a third of new seats, down from a high of 44% in 2022. The decline in non-white directors was even steeper, dropping 24 percentage points in 4 years, down to 20%. The employment rate for black women is experiencing one of its steepest declines in the last 25 years. For at least a decade, women have been underrepresented at every level of the corporate ladder, especially the most senior roles, where they made up just 29% of C-suite jobs. The ambition gap between men and women is the largest in the 11-year history of the consultancy McKinsey & Co.'s and women's advocacy nonprofit LeanIn.org's annual survey on the state of female white-collar workers. Researchers found a 6 percentage point spread between female and male workers who say they want to be promoted. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. These stats paint a grim picture, and there's no single factor that's led to the declines that can magically be reversed. Rather, they are consequences of a web of cultural, political, and policy shifts. It's the rollback of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs that was propelled and inspired by the Trump administration and anti-woke activists. It's the curtailing of flexible work arrangements, the kinds that research has shown in some cases did more to diversify corporate America than many formal DEI programs. It's demanding workers return to the office 5 days a week and give more hours. It's scaling back and cutting paid leave. It's calling for more masculine energy in the workplace. It's not as though 2008 was a real moment of advancement for women in business either. But then CEOs would at least say out loud that the dearth of women in leadership was a problem, even if they didn't plan to do anything about it. Now, the message is that these declines in progress don't really matter. The big bosses are saying it explicitly when 1 out of 5 companies admits they place little or no priority on women's career advancement, a figure that jumps to about 30% when it comes to women of color. And they're saying it implicitly in the kind of statistics they track. The share of S&P 500 companies disclosing data on women in management dropped last year by 16%, while those reporting the overall share of women in their workforce fell 14%. When I started tracking female CEOs, the question for me was always how many years would it take for women to attain the corner office in significant numbers. Today, the more pressing issue may be whether corporate America even thinks it's important to get them there at all.
And as part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, you can call us at 716-821-5555. Edward H. Belinsky, Nancy A. Castiglione, Nee Cicerelski, David J. Fortman, Santina Gannon, known as Tina Coglianaro, Nicogliandro, Betty Goss, Lazarus, Ronald S. Lazarus.
Lazars, I think.
Lazarus? Okay. Good to know. And Jean Elizabeth Service, Nee McGregor, James C. Stegner, and Ronald P. Wiskowicz, and also Abdullah Ibrahim, who passed away at 91, a pianist and anti-apartheid activist. And again, if you need further information on any of these names, please call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555.
Now it's time for the stars. Happy birthday for Tuesday, June 16th. You are both adventurous and cautious. You're imaginative, innovative, grounded, and ethical. This year, exciting changes will bring you increased freedom. So stay flexible. Let go of things that hold you back. Seek out new opportunities and be ready to act fast. Expect to travel and expand your horizons. If you're Aries, this is a romantic day. Feelings of love and affection for others will abound. Tonight is time for home and family. Taurus, you have strong ideas today and you want to be heard. However, be aware that your logic is influenced more than usual by your feelings. Tonight, you can have a meaningful discussion. Geminis, if you make a major purchase today, maybe at IKEA, your financial decisions might be driven by your feelings, not logic. Tonight, maintain your possessions. Cancers, today your ruler, the moon, is in your sign, lined up with Mercury. Meanwhile, we know you're a sensitive person. With Mercury lined up with the moon, it will be easy for you to express your feelings to others. Tonight, you will be strong. Leo, this is a romantic day for you because fair Venus is lined up with Neptune. I guess that goes with Aries, get together, which heightens your ideals and makes you look at others with compassion and tenderness. But tonight, instead of romance, you're going to enjoy solitude. Virgo, your sympathy for those who are less fortunate is very strong today. This is caring and noble. However, you might have to protect your interests. Tonight, be friendly. Libras, relations with friends and even members of groups will be very warm and affectionate today. In fact, you might want to help a friend in some way. Tonight, you better be modest. Scorpio, very likely you will be admired for your good taste, your appreciation of the arts, and for your ability to sympathize with those who are less fortunate. Tonight, learn and explore. Sagittarius, today your appreciation of beauty is heightened, making this the perfect time to visit galleries, museums, beautiful buildings, and parks. Tonight, though, check your banking. Maybe you can afford some of that stuff to bring it home. Capricorn, romance is affectionate and meaningful in a special way today. You might feel that you have found the perfect person for you, so tonight, listen to them. Aquarius, enjoy warm relations with spouses, partners, and friends. Venus is opposite your sign, softening the edges of all your relationships. Tonight, focus on getting better organized. And Pisces, a work-related romance might begin today. If so, it might feel like it was written in the stars. Destiny. Tonight, just relax and socialize.
Yeah, I thought those were illegal workplace relationships. Okay.
Frowned upon, not illegal.
Oh, okay. All right, then. So let's get a little serious here. The Supreme Court denies the New York gun law challenge. The Supreme Court on Monday turned away a gun industry challenge to a New York law that permits lawsuits against gun makers, wholesalers, and dealers for endangering people's safety through sales of firearms and ammunition. The justice declined to hear an appeal by an industry trade group, the National Shooting Sport Foundation, of a lower court's ruling upholding the law, which New York calls a public nuisance statute. The group had argued that the law unconstitutionally conflicted with federal law. Gun companies, including Smith & Wesson, Ruger, Beretta, Glock, Sig Sauer, and Sturm, joined the appeal. The Supreme Court in 25 spared Smith & Wesson from a lawsuit by Mexico's government accusing the company of aiding illegal gun trafficking to drug cartels. The National Shooting Sports Foundation expressed disappointment that the Supreme Court decided not to hear its appeal. NSSF sincerely believes that those criminals who illegally misuse lawful products should be held responsible for the harms they cause when they commit their crimes. Holding the firearm industry responsible for the criminal misuse of a firearm is akin to holding Anheuser-Busch and Ford Motor Company responsible for damages from drunk driving cases. The New York law, signed by former Democratic Governor Andrew Cuomo in 21, requires the gun industry to use reasonable safeguards to protect against gun trafficking, theft, and the use of so-called straw purchasers who buy firearms for someone else. It allows civil lawsuits by New York State and local officials as well as members of the public. The National Shooting Sports Foundation said the law was preempted by a 2005 federal law called the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act that shields the gun industry from civil liability when its products are used in crimes. Under the Constitution's Supremacy Clause, federal laws take precedence over state laws that conflict with them. The Manhattan-based Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals upheld New York's law last year. Circuit Judge Eunice Lee, an appointee of Democratic former President Joe Biden, wrote that Congress intended to preserve at least some cause of action when a defendant's knowing violation of federal or state firearms sales and marketing laws was a proximate cause of harm. Concurring, Circuit Judge Dennis Jacobs, an appointee of Republican former President George H.W. Bush, agreed that the New York law was not preempted, but accused state lawmakers of having contrived a broad public nuisance statute that applies solely to gun industry members and is enforceable by a mob of public and private actors. The appeal did not hinge on the Constitution's Second Amendment protections of the right to keep and bear arms, but the trade group said laws such as New York's imperil such rights by allowing lawsuits that could saddle companies with crushing liability for crime they had nothing to do with.
And in national news, Epstein paid off sheriff's deputies, an ex-aide says. Sarah Kellen, a longtime personal assistant to sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein, has disclosed for the first time that Epstein's preferential treatment at the Palm Beach County Jail may have been a result of him paying off Palm Beach sheriff deputies. Kellen, during her interview with the House Oversight Committee last month, was questioned about perks Epstein received while incarcerated at that facility, where Epstein was jailed from 2008 to 2009. She said she visited Epstein several times at the jail, and one time when she was home, he was able to use Skype from a jail computer to contact her. He used that computer to get her to undress for him on camera while he was in jail, Kellen testified. She was then asked by Representative Max Frost from Florida whether she knew of any other ways that Epstein was able to receive special treatment. I know that he arranged to have cash and, like Disneyland tickets, taken to one of the officers in the jail, and I'm not sure what he received with that, Kellen replied, according to a transcript of her testimony. She identified that Palm Beach Sheriff Deputy as Michael Fox. She was asked how she learned about Fox, and she explained that Epstein's paralegal, Story Cowles, had complained to her that he had to drive a long distance to personally deliver the cash and tickets from Epstein. The Miami Herald was unsuccessful in reaching Fox. A spokeswoman for the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office said that Fox retired in 2020. The Epstein investigation did not reveal these allegations, and they were never investigated in connection with that case, said Palm Beach Sheriff's Office spokeswoman Teresa Barbara. She further noted that a 21 investigation by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement found no wrongdoings by members of the sheriff's office. After an extensive investigation, FDLE determined that there was no inappropriate or criminal activity on the part of any PBSO member with respect to their participation in Epstein's work release or the permit detail. She added there are no current plans to investigate any other allegations since FDLE's 2021 probe. The investigation is complete, she said. Questions have long been raised about how Epstein was able to receive work release, where he could leave the jail for up to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, to visit his office, as a known sex predator. Palm Beach Sheriff Rick Bradshaw, who has been the county sheriff for more than 40 years, has said under the work release requirements at the time, Epstein was eligible. In an interview with the Herald, former Deputy Sheriff Michael Gauger, who supervised the jail during Epstein's tenure, said he had been concerned that deputies could be subject to influence by Epstein. When told about Kellen's allegation about Fox, Gauger responded, "I was afraid that would happen. Epstein was so smooth. He was trying to hook me in, and that wasn't going to happen." He added, "It wouldn't surprise me at all because of how manipulative he was." However, he said he wasn't aware whether Epstein was successful in his efforts. Gauger said the decision to give work release was made on the advice of the sheriff's office attorneys, who said Epstein's lawyers would mount a successful lawsuit to obtain a work release. "Our lawyer said we are going to lose this," our attorney told Bradshaw. "We aren't going to win this." Emails contained in the Justice Department's Epstein's files showed that Epstein used his sex therapist, Dr. Stephen Alexander, to reach out to Gauger while he was still serving his sentence in 2009. Under a plea deal his lawyers arranged with federal prosecutors, Epstein pleaded guilty to 2 solicitation charges in state court and was sentenced to 18 months in the Palm Beach County Jail. In return, he was given federal immunity for his sex trafficking crimes. He ultimately only served 13 months. Most of that time was spent in his West Palm Beach office on work release. He was also assigned to a private wing of the county stockade, not the general jail. Gauger said Epstein was given gain time or a reduced sentence for good behavior, and to his knowledge was not given any special treatment by deputies. Epstein paid for overtime for some 90 sheriff's deputies during his work release, totaling about $130,000. Epstein Business, the Florida Science Foundation, paid the money to PBSO to cover deputies assigned overtime to monitor him during his work release. The deputies were asked to wear suits and to refer to Epstein as their client. Gauger said because he was mindful that Epstein was slick, he rotated the jail deputies frequently to prevent any one deputy from being influenced by Epstein. Gauger admitted that Epstein was able to persuade him to meet for lunch and come to his mansion for dinner after he was released from jail in July of 2009. Epstein was still on house arrest at that time. Gauger, who was second in command of the department, said he met with Epstein because Epstein claimed he had information about possible improprieties by some of the jail guards. Nothing came of Epstein's tip, Gauger said, and he could not recall what else they talked about during the meals he shared. The newly released emails show the dinner was in September of 2009. The Herald was unsuccessful in reaching Cowles, who identified himself as Epstein's paralegal, who visited Epstein more than 100 times when he was in jail. Cowles was in a romantic relationship with Kellen at the time. Cowles was hired by Epstein's criminal defense lawyer, Jack Goldberger, within days of Epstein's pleading guilty in West Palm Beach. Court records showed he worked solely with Epstein as a conduit for information between Epstein and his attorneys.
And you are listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for 6/16. That would be June 16th, the closest the rays are to the sun, on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. And we'll return for more readings after this short break. Your readers today are
Lori and
Lita.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
And we'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are
Lori and
Bill. No, just kidding. Lita. Okay. Abuse claimants will vote on the $326 million settlement plan. Nearly 900. Where are we here? Here, we lost the computer. One of the next major steps in the Buffalo Catholic Diocese bid to end nearly 900 child sexual abuse claims in federal bankruptcy court will be a vote by the abuse victims on whether to accept the terms of a $326 million settlement plan. Members of the official committee of unsecured creditors, which negotiated the deal with the diocese and its insurers over the past 6 years, said this week it is the best plan that could be crafted considering the finances and insurance coverage of the Catholic Church in Western New York. The $326 million will include $150 million from the diocese, its parishes and schools, and other affiliated Catholic entities in Western New York. The remaining $176 million will come from insurance companies. It will be the largest settlement in a diocese bankruptcy case to date, topping a $323 million deal in '24 between the Diocese of Rockville Center on Long Island and abuse claimants. If everything goes smoothly over the next few months, the vote by abuse claimants could happen sometime in the fall, clearing the way for the diocese to exit Chapter 11 bankruptcy after more than 6 years. Ruth McAllister, one of the 6 volunteer members of the creditors committee, said she was hopeful the longest Chapter 11 case for a U.S. diocese was nearing a conclusion. It's been a 6+ long years of working and frustration and ups and downs and back and forth. Honestly, it's been so long that it feels surreal there's light at the end of the tunnel. It was almost like this was going to last forever, but fortunately not. For the first time since the formation of the Creditors Committee in 2020, its members spoke publicly about their work to get a deal that ultimately will result in payment to victims who suffered sexual abuse as children at the hands of clergy and other employees of the diocese and area Catholic parishes. Individual payment amounts will vary by the type and duration of abuse and its effect on victims. Those payments may go out by the end of this year or by early 2027, according to attorney Stephen Boyd, who represents several hundred abuse claimants. McAllister, a retired clinical social worker, said she was proud of the work she and other committee members did through difficult negotiations during which they were, at times, insulted, ignored, and vilified. McAllister said she anticipated spending up to 2 years serving on the committee and representing the interest of abuse victims. I never expected 6+ years. Committee members have largely avoided making public comments during the bankruptcy. My computer just froze.
because any information divulged in negotiations with the diocese and insurance companies was considered privileged and confidential. Still frozen?
Keep going.
The committee met more than 300 times over the 6 years, including regular weekly video conference meetings that lasted 1 to 3 hours. The volunteers also sat in on 76 court hearings, attended 34 mediation sessions, each of which lasted as long as 8 hours, and listened to more than 100 impact statements by abuse victims.
For committee members, the work often forced them to live through the trauma of their own abuse all over again. It was like stripping off your skin and stepping into the salty sea every damn week because it opened the wounds every time. McAllister joined fellow committee members Anne Marie Dempsey, Richard Brownell, Peter Starks, Scott Jurger, and Howard Zwelling at a news conference Monday inside Boyd's Buffalo office. Many of them said they felt the weight of representing hundreds of people who were deeply harmed by the actions of the church and its employees. Jurger said, so many abuse victims no longer are part of the Catholic Church because of what happened to them as children. Your faith is torn from you when something like this happens, he said. It stays with you forever. The damage is permanent. Dempsey said she often had difficulty sleeping because of what she has seen and heard from other victims of child sex abuse, combined with her own experience as a child. Sometimes being on the committee has been almost as traumatic as what happened to us when we were abused, because we're reliving everyone else's trauma with them. The next step in the diocese bankruptcy case is the filing of an amended plan of reorganization that spells out how the diocese will restructure and pay its creditors, including the abuse claimants. It also must file an amended disclosure statement which contains detailed information about its finances. Those documents are due to be filed by Wednesday with the U.S. Bankruptcy Court for the Western District of New York. Hearings on the disclosure statement will be followed by a vote by abuse claimants on the reorganization plan. Committee members said they were optimistic that abuse claimants would approve it. Individual victims won't get nearly the amount of money they deserve for what happened to them. But I don't think there's going to be anything better, Dempsey said. I really think it's the best way forward and out of this.
And in tourism, Graycliff names Fabian as interim director. The century-old Graycliff Estate in Derby has tapped a former Frank Lloyd Wright archivist to head the conservancy. Carol Ann Fabian, whose career has touched architecture, fine arts, and collections leadership, has been named interim executive director. Graycliff said her appointment marks the beginning of a new chapter for the estate. Graycliff is a place of extraordinary beauty, meaning, and possibility, Fabian said in a statement. Wright designed it as a place of refuge and inspiration, and that spirit is very much alive today. The Conservancy is set to expand its visitor services, programming, and community partnerships. Fabian will work closely with the board, staff, and volunteers to set the strategic direction for the Conservancy moving forward. Graycliff reached a major milestone recently with the completion of a new visitor center on the property. The visitor center will enable Graycliff to expand programming and increase public engagement, and Fabian is the perfect person to lead the way. Her firsthand experience guiding the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation archive, the definitive record of Wright's genius, combined with her leadership at world-class arts institutions, makes her uniquely prepared to lead Graycliff, said Charles Lefebvre, president of the Graycliff Conservancy Board of Directors. Fabian was director of the Avery Architectural and Fine Arts Library at Columbia University, overseeing the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation archive, comprising nearly 1 million documents, the most comprehensive record of Wright's life and work that is in existence. She also was director of collections at the Corning Museum of Glass. She directed the Educational Technology Center at the University at Buffalo and has a Master of Library and Information Science degree from UB's School of Information and Library Studies, as well as a Bachelor of Arts in Fine Art and Art History from SUNY Oswego. She also worked for the Getty Museum, and that is in Los Angeles.
And Kaleida Health is exploring the possibility of selling its 2 nursing homes. Kaleida Health is considering selling its 2 long-term care facilities as Western New York's largest health system continues to make moves to shore up its long-term sustainability. In a statement, oh my gosh,
You
this
lost
is
it
killing
again?
me. Yep, I got it. In a statement Monday, Kaleida confirmed it is exploring the possibility of selling the 300-bed High Point on Michigan healthcare facility in Buffalo and the 80-bed DeGraft Rehabilitation and Skilled Nursing Facility in North Tonawanda. We have identified interested buyers who will be touring both facilities in the coming week. Kaleida said while this process is ongoing, there will be no change to our current operations, services, or staffing. We are not making this decision lightly, and any potential buyer must be a good fit for our residents and our community. It remains our priority to support our employees and protect continuity of care for our residents. Kaleida said High Point has 425 employees and about 250 residents with a total capacity of 288 residents. DeGraff, meanwhile, has 104 employees and 80 residents. The potential move fits into Kaleida's $200 million system-wide improvement plan that was launched last year. Kaleida accelerated the implementation of that plan in response to last year's federal reconciliation bill, which is expected to reduce federal Medicaid spending by about $1 trillion nationwide by 2034. Among other moves, Kaleida has announced closure for its Millard Fillmore Surgery Center in Amherst, 2 Buffalo Therapy Service clinics, its Ear, Nose, and Throat Center in Buffalo General, and its Family Planning Center at 1100 Main Street. Kaleida has been the most aggressive in making moves among the healthcare systems in Western New York. Erie County Medical Center this year eliminated nearly 150 positions, or about 3% of its workforce, while Catholic Health announced a deal to reduce long-term IT costs and also moved forward with closing a long-time surgery center in Orchard Park. It doesn't come as a shock that Kaleida is looking to exit the nursing home business, an industry that has long struggled with low Medicaid reimbursement that can make it difficult to break even. Several nursing homes in Western New York have closed in the past month of years amid financial pressures.
Kaleida also has previously flirted with the idea of selling High Point, a $64 million facility that opened back in December of 2011. When High Point opened between High and East North Streets on the eastern edge of the city's medical corridor, it was the first urban nursing home built in Buffalo in decades and one of the largest nursing homes in Western New York. By February 2020, then Kaleida CEO Jody Lomio informed employees that the health system was trying to sell High Point, which had tallied about $8 million in losses through its first 9 years in operation.
But the pandemic stalled efforts to sell High Point, and Kaleida said as recently as early 2025 that it was investing in the nursing home. In March 2025, Kaleida said it had recently increased its adult ventilator bed capacity to 18 and purchased adult and pediatric ventilator equipment. High Point also was building a 4-chair dialysis service to better meet the needs of subacute and adult ventilator residents requiring dialysis. High Point also had a series of fines in recent years. High Point was fined $40,000 by the state in early 2022 due to lapses in COVID-19 testing frequency and missed temperature screenings of some employees. Kaleida also paid more than $177,000 in fines in 25 related to an incident of resident-to-resident sexual abuse. After that incident, High Point had a 1-star overall rating, or much below average, on Medicare's Care Compare website, which consumers use to evaluate healthcare facilities. That rating, as of Monday, has improved to 2 stars. That's not good, or below average. But High Point scored 5 stars, much above average on staffing, and 4 stars above average on quality measures. DeGraff Rehabilitation and Skilled Nursing Facility, meanwhile, has an overall federal rating of 4 stars or above average.
And did you know that 5 school districts are holding budget revotes today? After a month of informing parents and district residents on the impacts of their budgets, 5 Western New York school districts will present their financial plans for a second time to voters today. Some budgets look the same, others do not. Here is a rundown of each situation. Let's look at Grand Island. Why it failed: apparent backlash to rising taxes and household costs, combined with a campaign to rally opponents to the polls. It was Grand Island's first rejected budget since 2005. How it is different: Grand Island revised its budget, reducing its tax levy increase from 2.7% to 1.5%. The $500,000 in cuts in the revised budget do not affect student programs, the district said in a news release. The revote details: 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. in the Grand Island High School cafeteria. Cuba Rushford. It failed because of parent community dissatisfaction with spending choices, including the raises for administrators. How it is different: Cuba Rushford presents a revised budget too, reducing its tax levy increase from 10.17% down to 4.98%. That decrease involves cuts to 11 positions, 6 of which are by attrition or not replacing resigning or retiring employees. The district would cut 1 administrative position, a director of special education. On its website, district leaders showed how drastic further cuts would be if the revised budget were voted down. The details for the vote: noon to 8 p.m., and that is in the Cuba Rushford Elementary and Rushford Town Hall. In Lindenville, it failed because district leaders did not identify one specific reason, although the 9.84% increase in the school budget may have played a role. How it's different: Lyndonville's leaders are presenting their same budget again after dedicating the last several weeks to explaining to residents how its tax levy increase of 2.5% is actually lower than its cap of 4%. The increase in overall budget is due to state reimbursement money from its 2023 capital project and not an additional cost to taxpayers. The district website now includes a tool to calculate each resident's potential tax changes. The revote details, noon to 8 p.m., and that will be in Lyndonville Elementary. Randolph, why it failed. Plans for a 19% increase in the overall budget and a 40% increase in the tax levy sparked an angry response from residents, with the superintendent claiming that naysayers recruited the Amish community to flood the vote. Oh my goodness. Superintendent Kane Kelly said a reassessment of Allegheny State Parks land made Randolph appear artificially wealthy, which negatively affected state foundation aid. How it's different. Randolph has cobbled together a revised budget, reducing the overall increase to 14.7% and the tax levy increase to 19%. Kelly said the tax levy would be about $7.50 per $1,000 of assessed property value, which is still below pre-pandemic levels. According to an Empire Center study shared by the district, Randolph pays the second least per student in its region. The revised budget will still need a 60% majority to pass. You can vote at the Randolph High School cafeteria from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Finally, in West Valley was one of only a few districts in the state to exceed the tax levy increase cap. The Cattaraugus County District proposed a 4.5% levy increase, which would have required a 60% vote to pass. It fell to 47 to 117. How it's different. West Valley revised its budget to move under the cap of the tax levy increase to 2.1%, which will require just a simple majority to pass. The district on its website compared this year's budget with the originally proposed and revised plans for next year, which shows a 6.1% boost in student programming and a 4.3% decrease in administrative costs compared to the current year. You can revote in the West Valley School Gym from noon to 9 p.m.
And you are listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier radio reading service. The time is 17 minutes past the hour, and we are now moving to sports.
Yay!
Let's go Buffalo. Overnight shift at FedEx fuels Bills cornerback D. Alford's underdog mentality. Fear and frustration consumed D. Alford as he hauled heavy cardboard boxes from a 53-foot FedEx semi-truck into a quiet warehouse in the middle of the night. For the first time since he was a toddler, Alford couldn't play football. Nobody could. It was 2020, several months since he was a cornerback at Tusculum University, and the spread of COVID-19 caused professional sports leagues across the globe to suspend play. Alford didn't fear hard work. His father, he didn't wear it well. His father, Felton Jackson, taught D to be tireless. He feared that he would spend the rest of his life lifting heavy boxes and collecting a modest paycheck in his hometown, Griffin, Georgia, rather than realizing his dream of playing in the NFL. It was the most frustrating time of my life, Alford told the news. I got the glimpse of how life would be without sports. I had a hard time transitioning to going to work every day. It was mentally doing something for me. 20 paces from the Buffalo Bills locker room, as he cradled a helmet following practice, Alford's mind took him back to the day when his shift could not end until his belt line was clean. Even during his darkest days, Alford could not allow himself to fall victim to the negative thoughts. Once the world returned to normal, an opportunity awaited in Winnipeg and the Canadian Football League. The odds were long. 26 players would compete for one roster spot once training camp began. So on those nights when existential dread felt heavier than any cardboard box, he reminded himself of the stakes and the workouts that awaited once his shift ended and the sun rose. Each weekday until the call came, Alford worked. He would clock in at 9:30 p.m. If his belt line was clean, he would punch out at 6:30 a.m. His first of two workouts began at 8 a.m., and once the second was complete, he would go to sleep and do it all over again. Nearly 6 years since his last shift at FedEx, Alphonse secured a 3-year contract to play nickel cornerback for the Bills. He can make up to $21 million. Shortly after signing, Alford received a $4.5 million bonus.
Wow.
His story is treated as lore by American-born players in the CFL, anecdotal evidence that relocating to a different country can eventually lead to an NFL opportunity and paycheck. A few important chapters have yet to be written, though. Alford wants to be a Pro Bowler, and all-pro selection. Above individual accolades, he wants to help Buffalo win a Super Bowl. His arrival may have been overlooked during an offseason filled with sweeping change for the perennial contenders, but Alford was the first player signed by the Bills in free agency. It's crazy, man, he continues. It's crazy. I'm telling you that right now. It makes me think about my whole journey. It's a blessing to be where I am right now. No team in the NFL wanted Alford when his college career ended in 2019. He wasn't among the players considered by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers either, until one of his coaches called their assistant general manager and director of U.S. Scouting, Danny McManus. The video on Alford's game intrigued McManus. As a senior, the 6-foot cornerback led the South Atlantic Conference with 20 passes defended. He intercepted 5 passes in 11 games and set a program record with 7 passes defended in a single game. The playmaking was not as important as the footwork, though. And we are freezing again.
Alford seemed to glide around the field with little effort. Cornerbacks can't play in the CFL without it. You can't play press coverage. Slotbacks are allowed to run toward the line of scrimmage before the snap. They have more control in matchups than NFL receivers. The field is also 110 yards long and 65 yards wide. Many American cornerbacks failed to adjust. The Blue Bombers were intrigued by Alford enough in 2020 to sign him, but they weren't sure how any player in his position would look on the field when training camp could be held in 2021. You ready?
Yep. Some guys were out of shape when players finally reported. Others looked like they didn't belong. Alford was different. He didn't stop working during the pandemic. His first job out of college was at a local Walmart. He carted groceries to parking lot for online orders. His second forced him to work overnight and create time to be in the gym or on a field. 3 or 4 cornerbacks were cut following each of the training camp practices in 2021. The departures continued until Alford realized that he was on the field each day with the starters. Starting at halfback, up there is a real challenge, said Kyle Walters, Winnipeg's general manager. That's your nickel corner in the NFL. Imagine those slot backs running full speed at you. He's smart, athletic, and quick. He asks all the right questions. You could see the footwork and athleticism were a little different than we're used to seeing. In the CFL, your boundary halfback is your best football player in the secondary, since he's got the most going on. It's the hardest challenge. You are lined up against other team best receivers all game. For him to win that job was very not normal. It hasn't happened since. Alford is featured prominently in a recruiting video that the Blue Bombers sent to prospective American players. He has become one of the poster boys for NCAA athletes who use the CFL as a springboard to the NFL. After helping Winnipeg win a championship, the coveted Grey Cup, Alford was named a CFL All-Star in 2021. He was welcomed back for a second season, but Walters expected word to travel fast. NFL teams can begin to request official workouts with CFL players on the 1st of December that year, and within days, Winnipeg received several for Alford. The Atlanta Falcons gave him a future reserves contract on the 10th of January. 4 games into his rookie season, Alford intercepted Browns quarterback Jacoby Brissett on Cleveland's final drive to secure a win for Atlanta. In 23, Alford started 5 games and played 570 snaps on defense. He was on the field for 723 snaps and started 11 games in 24. Last season, he intercepted Josh Allen to help the Falcons beat the Bills. Jim Leonard, the Bills' new defensive coordinator, sat with the team's player personnel department, including general manager and president of football operations Brandon Beane, for 80 minutes a few weeks before free agency began. Leonard explained the skills each player on each defense should covet. At nickel cornerback, he needed someone who can be trusted to cover receivers and tight ends man-to-man. The person needed to be a playmaker, someone who could take the ball away. Leonard also wanted a versatile athlete. Alford started at nickel and boundary cornerback in Atlanta. He emerged as the Bills' top target in free agency and signed shortly after the market opened. Just a guy who is grateful, absorbing every minute in this building like, man, I was wanted and I was paid, being said a few weeks later about Alford. A guy who ain't like, okay, I can relax now. He was sitting on the edge of his chair. The chirp, I felt the chip. I felt a chip on this dude like, you ain't even seen my best football yet, which we hope. Love his DNA and love his story. Alford is a building block in Bill's effort to transform their defense into a positionless group that will use different personnel groupings throughout a game to confuse quarterbacks. For Leonard's plan, he needs strong communicators in the secondary. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, a veteran safety, was the loudest player on the field throughout mandatory minicamp and voluntary practices. Alford, who turns 29 in November, is the oldest player in the group. The concepts the Bills coaches are teaching cornerbacks were part of Alford's workflow in Atlanta. Jay Vallee, the Bills cornerbacks coach, commended Alford's willingness to share that knowledge with younger players. Multiple players may line up in nickel cornerback during a game based on the opponent and its personnel grouping. Alford is the starter, though. Gone are the days of NFL offenses putting only small, speedy receivers in the slot. Nowadays, the best athletes are put there to create matchup problems for a defense. Alford is the Bills' solution. My journey itself speaks to the type of person I am, he said. I know I've been in the league going on 5 years. I still feel like an underdog. There's still a lot of things I want to do. Being in the league for that whole time, it's the right moment and everything will fall into place.
He sounds amazing.
Doesn't
and
he?
I almost lost it while you were reading because when you were reading, I said, he wants to do bowling? Why is he interested in bowling too? What's that? And then, oh, there's a difference between pro bowler and pro bowler. So anyway, I caught up.
Yeah, there you go.
And in NHL notes, apology made for comment on roofies. Canadian broadcaster Ron MacLean issued an on-air apology for making a comment about roofies during the pregame show for Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final. With the Vegas Golden Knights game against the Carolina Hurricanes taking place in Las Vegas, Sportsnet did a spoof of the Hangover movie and showed keeper of the cup Phil Pritchard asleep on a couch next to the trophy. As the skit ended, MacLean said, "The roofies, they'll get you every time." MacLean later apologized on air for the comment, which he called a bad mistake. I referenced a scene in the movie in which the tiger is put to sleep, Mike Tyson's tiger. The keepers of the cup, of course, are asleep in the skit, and I used the term, the slang for the drug, which has far more serious connotations in reality. I should have made that connection. I did not. I know I triggered some people. I know I offended some people with that remark, and I feel very badly for that, and I want to thank you for bringing it to my attention, to our attention. I'm very sorry. I like it when people apologize.
I do too.
Flyers Vladar finalizing extension. The Philadelphia Flyers are finalizing a long-term extension with goaltender Daniel Vladar. Multiple outlets reported the deal, which cannot become official until July the 1st, will be for 5 or 6 years with an average annual value between $5 million and $6 million. Vladar, age 28, went 29-14-7 with a career best 2.42 goals against average and a career high tying .906 save percentage in his first season with the Flyers, which was 25-26. He was 4-6 in the playoffs with 2 shutouts and 2.18 GAA with a .922 save percentage. The Czech Republic native is 78-48-23 with 4 shutouts, a 2.80 GAA, and a .898 save percentage through 157 career games with the Boston Bruins, which was 2021, and the Calgary Flames, 21-25, and of course the Flyers. Boston drafted Vladar in the 3rd round in 2015 and had traded him to Calgary in 21. He signed with Philadelphia in free agency on July 1st of 25. The Hurricanes are favored to repeat. After completing one of the most dominant runs in Stanley Cup playoff history on Las Vegas on Sunday, the Carolina Hurricanes found themselves atop another list synonymous with Sin City, the betting odds. Shortly after the Hurricanes defeated the host Vegas Golden Knights 3-0 to win the Stanley Cup final in 6 games, the odds makers placed Carolina as the early favorite to win the Cup next season. No, it's going to be the Sabres.
That's right.
DraftKings put the Hurricanes
And we
at
believe it.
plus 700. A winning bet would return $7 for every $1 waged. Wagered? Bet. Slightly ahead of the Colorado Avalanche, plus 800, and then the Golden Knights, 850. They are the only team with better than 1,000 odds. If the Hurricanes were to repeat, they would do so on the heels of the Florida Panthers, who won the Cup in each of the previous 2 seasons. Another team in the Southeast, the Tampa Bay Lightning, won back-to-back Cups in 2019-20 and 2021. A repeat would also make the Hurricanes the 4th team in the last 12 years to go back-to-back, as the Pittsburgh Penguins lifted the Stanley Cup in 2016 to 2017. Who cares? The Sabres are going to win next year,
That's right.
and they will repeat 2 more years after that. And
That's right.
that's my final editorial comment.
And we believe it. Buffalonians believe we will win.
We believe it.
That's
and
right.
you're listening to reading of today's Buffalo news and some odd commentary because we're very, very weird today on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The
Yeah.
time, 31 minutes after the hour.
Okay then, so moving over to some notes, the Cowboys Pickens reports for physical. Dallas Cowboys wide receiver George Pickens reported to the team's facility for his physical Monday and is expected to be in attendance for the team's mandatory minicamp, multiple media outlets have reported. The Cowboys minicamp runs from Tuesday through Thursday, and Pickens did not participate in any of the team's voluntary workouts after the Cowboys placed the franchise tag on him this offseason. Despite his absence, Cowboys coach Brian Schottenheimer told the reporters he expected to see Pickens at minicamp. I expect he'll be here, Schottenheimer said on the 4th of June. I think he's in a good spot, but again, I know he's handling his business. I know he misses his teammates, and we miss him too. Pickens, who's 25, signed his franchise tag on the 29th of April, locking him in for a 26th season with a guaranteed salary of $27.3 million. He's coming off his first Pro Bowl season in 25 when he caught 93 passes on 137 targets for over 1,400 yards with 9 touchdowns, all career bests, over 17 games with 15 starts in his first year with Dallas. Dallas placed the franchise tag on Pickens on the 27th of February, the first time the team has used the franchise tag since 23 with running back Tony Pollard. Pickens was a second-round draft pick of the Pittsburgh Steelers in 22 out of Georgia and was traded to the Cowboys last season. He had 267 receptions and over 4,000 receiving yards and 21 touchdowns in 65 games with 55 starts. And the Texans' Ryan's offenses struggle. How much better can the Houston Texans defense than a Texans defense that a season ago? I don't know what that is. If it improves, fans will be talking about the unit like it's the 1985 Chicago Bears or the 2001 Baltimore Ravens. Good. It's the way Texans head coach DeMeco Ryans wants it to be. The team prepares to go on a run for the postseason for the 4th straight year. Offenses are going to struggle, Ryan said after day 1 of mandatory minicamp. Houston enters the 26th season not just as a favorite in the AFC, but rather a legitimate Super Bowl contender. But we know the Bills are going to win. That should be the goal since they've made it out of the wild card round 3 straight years but failed to advance further. And around the league, the New York Jets agreed to terms on a 4-year, $64 million extension with right guard Joe Tipman. His agents confirmed on Monday. The contract with the versatile and durable Tipman, who's 25, includes $34.9 million guaranteed, according to Athletes First. The Denver Broncos are signing veteran wide receiver Hakeem Butler, a 2-time UFL Offensive Player of the Year, NFL Network reported on Monday, and Butler, who turned 30 last month, won the award in the Spring League in 2024 and again in 26 when he led the UFL with 641 yards on 29 catches with 3 touchdowns for the St. Louis Battlehawks.
Let's go really local.
Okay.
Local track and field athletes are champs. In the final weekend of high school sports across the state, here's a recap of how Section 6 and Monsignor Martin did. In baseball, Class AAA, Niagara Falls lost 6-3 to Liverpool in the semifinals. Class A, Grand Island was defeated 9-0 by Notre Dame in the semifinals. In Class B, Medina lost 3-0 in the state final to Chester. In the Monsignor Martin League, St. Dominic defeated Nichols in the state final 9-1. In track, the New York State PHSAA Outdoor Track and Field Champions took place this past weekend at Webster Schroeder High School. Here's a list of local athletes who won state titles. Here's the boys in the 800 meter. Maple Grove's Ethans Verboski, Class C, 1 hour 41.27. In the 30, no, that's 1 minute, isn't it? 1:41.27. I'll just read it that way. 3,200 meters, City Honors, Henry Peterson, Class B, 9:15.33. Long jump, Wilson's Ryan Hugh, Class C, 23-4. High jump, Hugh, 6-6. 110 hurdles, Depew's Zach Breidenbacher, Class B, 14.69 seconds. Discus, Amherst Benjamin Walker, Class B, 170.10. In girls, discus, Hamburg's Isabella Caparco, Class B, 135.0. Southwestern's Michaela Johnson, Class C, 136.8.
Those are some pretty good times. Okay, let's move over to Dear Eric. Dear Eric, my husband and I are retired. We have been married for 29 years, and in the last several years, he has refused to get rid of anything. We downsized 5 years ago. During the move, I was able to get him to donate some coats, but he could not wear, but that was about all. He was to go through the basement, workbench, and garage. Unfortunately, when it was time to move, he got rid of barely anything. Currently, our basement and garage are full of things he has not used in 20 years. He no longer does much around the house, so all these tools and things are just cluttering. He's 81. Whenever I approach clearing things out, he gets upset and says, "No way. This has caused me a lot of stress. Please help." Signed, Too Much Stress.
Stuff.
Dear stuff. And stress. Too much stress. Your household will likely benefit from the help of a third party who can work with him and relieve him of your burden of convincing him to downsize. It sounds like it's not a shared value, so the first step would be establishing what you need and hearing what he needs. If he is hoarding things, or if his belongings create a dangerous environment, for instance, then one of your, oh my gosh, this computer.
Stated needs should be safety
Sorry.
for yourselves and anyone who might enter the home to help you. The conversation then becomes about whether safety is a shared value and what you can do together or separately to honor that value. In this instance, he may not be motivated to fully downsize, but he could see how his habits are impacting you and help you work on remedies. A senior manager or professional downsizer would be really invaluable here. Often, the prospect of downsizing can seem too cut and dry. One day you have your things, the next day you don't. A skilled downsizer will listen to you, help you identify what's important emotionally, logistically, financially, and work with you to edit. This may be a helpful readjustment for your husband. Keep going? Mm-hmm. Okay. Talking to a downsizer may also help you to identify what of his belongings feels bothersome to you and what's just stuff. That distinction may help you to investigate and honor your feelings, which can reduce stress. Dear Eric, my 93-year-old something has been in a something facility. She's been there for 2.5 years.
Mother.
You got it?
I got it.
Okay.
Her decline began when she lost her brother with whom she lived. She has not been able to deal with his death and has lost the will to live. She stayed with me for 1 month following his death, but wanted to return home. So I agreed on a trial basis. I need to mention that she takes many medications, one of which she needs every 4 hours. I have been managing her meds for years. 6 months after she returned home, I found her unresponsive because she OD'd on one of her meds on purpose. She will not accept a health aide coming to her home because she says they steal from you. I couldn't risk taking her back to her home, and she didn't want to live with me, so she said she wanted to live in assisted living. I sold her house, which she agreed to at the time, but now she regrets it. Now she's miserable there. She has the beginning of dementia. I cannot bring her to my home because of her medication needs and the needs of someone to watch her 24/7 to make sure she doesn't harm herself. Now all she does is cry and say she is depressed. She is.
Putting the guilt trip on me, and I'm having a hard time dealing with this. What can I do to feel better about the situation, and am I doing the right thing by keeping her there? Dear Guilty, I'm so sorry for the situation you and your mother are in. It's important for you and for her to remember that a lot of this is beyond anyone's control. You're making the best choices available to you.
Your mother may not always like those choices, but you're not acting out of malice. Emotionally and cognitively, she may not be able to fully process this. That's something you may have to accept, just as you've accepted and accommodate her other health challenges. Talk to her care team at the assisted living facility or her primary caregiver about getting her support for depression. You write that she never fully recovered from her brother's death and that she made an attempt on her life. Her grief may be so overwhelming and making her current situation even worse. These aren't things that you can take away, unfortunately, but there is help available for her.
And Wenger, local Odyssey manager, is exiting after a 40-year career. Tim Wenger, who rose from a reporter at WBEN AM to senior vice president and market manager of Odyssey Buffalo, which owns several Buffalo stations, is ending his 40-year career with the company and its predecessors at the end of the month. Wenger confirmed his departure in a text. He added he declined other options to stay with Odyssey, which is undergoing a restructuring that includes eliminating positions like his. Odyssey stations in Buffalo include news and talk station WBEN AM, sports station WGR AM, the Bet Buffalo WWKB AM, and FM stations 107.7 and 104.7. The Wolf WLKK FM, Classic R&B 107.3 FM, which also airs on WWS AM, and KISS 98.5 WKSE FM. It's been a marathon since the day former WBEN news director Jim McLaughlin convinced former WBEN owner Larry Levy to hire me back in 1986. And I've adapted and changed at all the mile markers along the way, explains Wenger in a text. The company restructuring allows me the opportunity to take a breather and consider what's next. Only 3 years ago, the Orchard Park High School and SUNY Oswego graduate was promoted by Odyssey to his present position. Wenger began his radio career as a news reporter anchor with WBEN back in 1986. He has since been news director, program director, and operations manager for the 3 AM stations. He also has been brand manager for WBEN and operations manager for the 3 AM stations and news talk format vice president for Odyssey. Wenger, who was inducted into the Buffalo Broadcasters Hall of Fame in 23, is married to Susan Rose, also a BBA Hall of Fame member, who is the morning news anchor and reporter for WBEN. In the mid to late 1990s, they co-anchored Buffalo's Evening News, and that was from 4 to 7 p.m. on WBEN.
I wonder if she's going to retire too.
I don't know. Gotta look at what's ahead.
Yeah. So, in a column entitled Emotional Fitness, during some years, every day is Father's Day. I remember it as if it were yesterday, and it may have happened 50 years ago. I was sitting in our converted garage family room, tastefully decorated with AstroTurf and lime green cabinets to match, playing my little guitar. My dad walked in and sat down on the couch. He was an olive-skinned man, but that day he was pale as a ghost. I was strumming away and asked him what was going on, and he replied, "We're broke," with tears in his eyes. Without missing a beat, I said, "Well, I guess I'd better get a job." I was about 14 at the time and had only helped Dad out at the office. I had never really worked before and wasn't sure what I was getting myself into. I slung my guitar over my back, soft cases hadn't been invented yet, and rode my bike a few miles to the pizza place, where we used to hang out when I was in high school. Somehow, I talked them into letting me play for tips and pizza. And so my music career began. I had no amps or sound system. It was just me and the guitar, and I had to sing loud for people to hear. Every Friday and Saturday, I'd ride the old bike to my gig and spend time with the owner and staff until it was time for me to go on stage, so to speak. I guess they liked me because I played there until I got into college and had to leave town. They even named a pizza after me, the Bart Special. Perhaps the first vegetarian pizza in town, and those were fun times despite the financial hardships. Dad never fully recovered financially, and we started living differently. No more country club. My dad still played golf, but at the public course. My mom threw her card parties at the house. Dad was a pretty good card player and actually brought home the bacon by playing gin rummy with his buddies. Things were less extravagant, but I was too young to realize the toll this took on my parents. It all seemed okay to me, but they argued more, and both of them took to drinking on a nightly basis. I guess life may not look so bad after sharing a pitcher of martinis, but as we know, that served to mask the problems they were facing. I got into college a couple of years later thanks to a National Merit Scholarship. My parents moved to Las Vegas into a less expensive townhouse, and my dad tried to make ends meet. Since they both enjoyed gambling, it seemed like a good provider role seriously. Then he got cancer. I was in my 20s. I was in school and had a job, but I went to Vegas every weekend to be by his side. I still remember holding his hand and realizing how big his hands were compared to mine. He was lucid much of the time, and we enjoyed being together. I made sure to let him know how important he was to me, and that I wanted to be a good man like him. Dad went through a lot in his later years, but his outlook on the world remained positive until the day he died. Spending those last few months with him is one of the things in my life that I am happiest about. He brought me into the world, and I was there to help him go to the next. Though it's still sad that he's gone, the time we had together was a gift. My dad enjoyed a good cigar, so every Father's Day, I light up a stogie in his honor. Most of it still burns in the ashtray. I still have the one he used to use, but the smell reminds me of the journalist turned PR man who could always make me laugh. Love you, Dad.
Thanks for looking out for me.
Thanks.
And in Heloise, donating non-food essentials to pantries. Dear Heloise, I have a suggestion for donations to food pantries. I usually donate non-food necessities, such as toilet paper, trial sizes, or small sizes of shampoo, laundry detergent, feminine supplies, toothpaste, and more. Many people who use food pantries are living out of a backpack, so small sizes work the best. Pantries have a high number of customers when school is out, so this is a good time for an extra donation. I also include zip-closed bags to keep things dry in a backpack that isn't water resistant. Can you imagine needing toilet paper and not having it?
Yes.
Also, as far as clothing drives, I'll pick out a couple packages of underwear that are my size to donate. Someone who's my size may be in need of it. And that was from Beverly. Beverly, these are useful items that we all need. However, some food pantries won't accept anything but food items. So it might be best to call and ask if your local food pantry or food bank is willing to accept and distribute the non-edible items. I do know that Sister Helen's Food Pantry in Lockport accepts the non-items. In fact, they like to have the toilet paper and the toothpaste and things like that.
Yeah.
Wipe after shopping, not toilet paper. Dear Heloise, just wanted to respond to the comments that I'm seeing about using wipes at the grocery store. I do use them, but on my way out of the store to clean my hands, not on my way in. From Kate in Portland, Oregon. Kate agreed. You never know how many times an item was handled by another person. When I get home from the grocery store, or any shopping trip, I always wash my hands before putting things away. Then I wash them again afterward to remove anything I may have picked up from handling the bags. Does that sound excessive? Actually, it's not. We all handle things that other people have touched, and without thinking about it, we then touch our eyes, our lips, or an earlobe. When doing this, we transmit bacteria to ourselves with the possibility of picking up a flu, a virus, or something worse. I didn't wipe off this mouse here before I use it. Okay. Wash your food items. Dear Heloise, we work in a large grocery store here in Texas, and we often see people handling items such as tomatoes, looking them over and putting them back, then examining another tomato, and so on. If you want the fruits and vegetables that have been handled the least, always reach as high up as you can. Most folks take from the lower options, as they are easier to reach. Before you eat these fresh foods, wash them well. Instead of soap, use baking soda to scrub off any germs and oil from a stranger's hand. That was from Bobby, Jake, and Lewis. Blister packaging. Dear Heloise, I have a good way of removing medications from blister packaging. I use a basic potato peeler and use the end of the peeler to remove the eyes of the potatoes. I push the end of the peeler through the foil at the edge of the blister, then fold the foil over. The point of the peeler isn't sharp enough to damage the medication. When I've finished peeling all of the blister's packing material, I dump the contents into a bowl, and this ways my thumbs don't get sore.
Oh,
Interesting perspective.
very, yes.
I don't know if I would open them all at once, though. I think you want to keep them fresh.
Unless you're putting them in something else.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so Fox strikes a $22 billion deal to buy Roku. Fox Corporation is buying Roku in a cash and stock deal valued at about $22 billion, in a bet that the top TV streaming platform will strengthen its advertising business and expand online reach for its sports and news content. The deal, announced on Monday, gives Fox access to more than 100 million households using Roku's streaming platform. I have that. And media company Better Target Ads takes on competition and reduces reliance on traditional distribution. It is Fox's first major acquisition since CEO and chairman Lachlan Murdoch cemented control over the media empire his father Rupert Murdoch built following a family settlement last year. The CEO called the Roku deal a defining moment for Fox that brings together the most valuable live content portfolio and video consumption with the preeminent streaming platform through which America watches it. Fox has dabbled in streaming over the past few years, finally launching its Fox One competitor last August, but has lacked a serious streaming business with the ability to compete in a space dominated by YouTube, Netflix, Amazon, Disney+, HBO Max, Paramount Plus, and Peacock. With CNN parent company Warner Brothers Discovery that received initial U.S. regulatory approval to combine with Paramount, Fox's purchase of Roku became more urgent. According to Nielsen's metric, YouTube is by far the top viewed entertainment platform, wow, with Netflix in second. Combining Fox and Roku creates the third largest player in U.S. television by shares of viewing, the company said in a press release. Together, they will control more than a 5% share. One of the first companies to bring streaming platforms like Netflix and YouTube to television through connected devices and smart TVs, Roku's business is largely driven by advertising and subscription revenue from streaming apps on its platform. Roku's platform also carries a number of competitor apps, a trend that will continue, Murdoch said. It's essential that Roku remains open and partner-friendly business, he said on a call with analysts. We don't see that changing at all.
And Schumer lays blame for measles in the county. As Erie County deals with the fallout of first 2 confirmed cases of measles since 2018, Senator Schumer wants the federal government to rehire infectious disease experts who were let go over the last 18 months. Meanwhile, the county's health commissioner said Erie County is now just 1 confirmed case of measles away from declaring an outbreak of the disease, which is highly contagious and especially dangerous to newborn children who are too young to receive their first dose of a protective vaccine. The Trump administration has taken a wrecking ball to programs that keep New York safe from measles, and Erie County is paying the price, Schumer said at a news conference. Schumer, public health officials, and local health care providers gave an update on the county's 2 confirmed measles cases, which were announced June 4th and 9th. Schumer said program cuts as well as public messages that have sown doubt among some of the safety and the effectiveness of the vaccines have created a dangerous situation in Erie County and throughout the nation. I'm here to sound the alarm on the Trump administration's disastrous response to measles and lay out exactly what needs to be done to protect Western New Yorkers. He announced a 3-pronged plan. He wants the CDC to rehire the experts who were fired by the Trump administration. He also wants to restore measles-related grants, which includes those dedicated vaccination and pandemic response, and support public funding for public health programs. This is going to be a scary week, said Erie County Health Commissioner. She said anyone who is likely to get sick through contact with the other two patients will start to show symptoms this week. And the symptoms include fever, cough, pink and watery eyes, runny nose, and a rash that often starts on the head and moves down the body. When we talk about vaccines, we are talking about protecting our children, their classmates, their teachers, their grandparents, and everyone they come in contact with. Vaccines are one of the most important tools we have to keep children safe and to prevent diseases from spreading.
And you have been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for June 16th. We read from the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, you can call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Lori and
Lita. Thanks for listening. Take care, and as always, keep smiling.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability, which makes